The hour for convening having arrived, all members will please take their seats. All members of this House will please take their seats at this time. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell?
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? That's as loud as I can get it. Wrong. That's the best I can do. That's the best.
All members will please take their seats. On the floor, in the gallery, in 341, we're about to have the morning roll call. All right, we're going to ask the clerk, if he would, to call the roll. Let me ask members, while we're going through roll calls, we had a good day yesterday, by the way, and thank you very much for your cooperation. But we need to keep chatter down to a minimum because the clerk's office has difficulty hearing responses. And please, when you answer yes, or if we're voting on a bill, if you're voting no, answer no. Anything other than that might get a little fuzzy. So, Mr. Clerk, would you unlock the machines and please begin the call of the roll?
Alexander, Anulowitz, Ballinger, Barr, Barton, Belton, Bennett, Bentley, Benton, Beverly, Blackman, Bodie, Bruce, Burns, Carpenter, Carson, Chokas, Clark, H, Collins, Cooper, Corbett, Dempsey, Dickey, Dollar, Drenner, Dubnik, Evstration, England, Irwin, Fleming, Fry, Gaines, Gardner, Clanton, Gravely, Harrell, Hatchett, Hawkins, Hitchens, Holcomb, Holmes, Houston, Hughley, Jackson M, Jaspers, Jones J, Kelly, Kendrick, Knight, LaHood, Laricchia, Lund, Martin, Mathiak, McCall, Morris G, Newton, Nix, Oliver, Parrish, Parsons, Petrie, Perkel, Powell, Reeves, Rhodes, Rich, Ridley, Rutledge, Scoggins, Setzler, Silcox, Smith L, Smith R, Smith V, Smyrie, Stevens R, Tankersley, Tanner, Tarvin, Taylor, Thomas E, Trammell, Washburn, Watson, Welch, Werkheiser, Wiedauer, Williams A, Williamson, Yurda, Allen, Bazemore, Bernal, Cannon, Carter, Clark D, Clark J, Cook, Davis, Douglas, Dreyer, Donahue, Earhart, Evans, Frazier, Gilligan, Gertler, Henson, Hill, Hogan, Holland, Holly, Hobson, Howard, Hutchinson, Jackson D, Jones S, Jones T, Jones V, Couch, Kennard, Lopez Romero, Marin, McLean, McLaurin, McLeod, Meeks, Mitchell, Moore B, Moore C, Morris M, Nelson, Wen, Paris, Prince, Pullen, Robichaux, Saints, Schofield, Scott, Shannon, Sharper, Smith M, Stevens M, Stevenson, Thomas Abel Mabel, Turner, Walensky, Wilkerson, Williams MF, Williams N, Wilson, Beasley Teague, Bonner,
Here. Here.
Buckner,
Here.
Burchett,
Here.
Caldwell,
Here.
Campbell,
Here.
Cantrell,
Here.
Dickerson,
Here.
Dukes,
Here.
Gamble,
Here.
Gilliard,
Here.
Gordon,
Here.
Green,
Here.
Gullett,
Here.
Jones, J.B.,
Here.
Kirby, Lott,
Here.
Mathis,
Here.
Metz, Momtahan,
Here.
Park,
Here.
Pruitt, Rogers,
Here.
Singleton,
Here.
Stovall,
Here.
Williams, R.
I'm here.
Allen, Anulowitz, Blackman, Carter, Clark D, Dollar, Dreyer, Frazier, Kirby, LaHood, Lopez Romero, Quinn, Rutledge, Smith M, Thomas A.M. Completes the roll, Mr. Speaker.
Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I would ask this morning as we go through our devotion to keep Leisha Johnson, who is, as you know, my executive assistant, and her family in your prayers. She had to take her husband, Carl, to the hospital last night, and he was admitted at Emory, and so we're monitoring his progress today, but I know she would be greatly encouraged by your prayers. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 128th House District, Representative Mack Jackson. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. I'm here to introduce to you my friend, Pastor David Luke. Pastor Luke is the pastor of Stone Springfield AME Church in Stapleton, Georgia. He's married to the lovely Miss Karen Luke. Together they have 2 children, David and Janice. Pastor Luke has been at Stone Springfield AME for 9 months. He previously served at Flipper Chapel AME in Millersville, Georgia for 10 years. I first met Pastor Luke through the late Representative Rusty Kidd, and since that time, we have become good friends. He prays for me and constantly calls with a word of encouragement. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today my friend, Pastor David Luke.
Thank you so much, Representative Mack. To the Speaker of the House, a dear brother, God bless you for your work, sir. To our great governor, to God be the glory for the work that you're having to do. And to all of you who serve the length and breadth of this great state, which I've come to love. This morning I have a word that's found for us in Matthew, the 22nd chapter, beginning at the 36th verse. Very familiar scripture. You won't even need your Bibles to follow me with this. It says, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Thus ends the reading of God's anointed word. The great poet Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote these words: We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. The debt we pay to human guile, with torn, bleeding hearts we smile. In mouth with myriad subtleties, why should the world be overwise? In counting all our tears and sighs, nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. Beloved brothers and sisters, this morning I greet you with the joy of love in my heart for Christ. I greet you with a commandment that we cannot avoid, we cannot be silent about, we cannot turn our face away from. For the Lord commanded each of us to love our neighbor. And I know loving your neighbor might not be the most fashionable thing to do these days. Since we have been in stay in location, many of us are meeting our neighbors for the first time. But that is your immediate neighbor. Matthew is speaking about a neighbor which is more intrinsic, somewhat invisible to the naked eye. Matthew speaks of a love in thy neighbor that should be important. Important because loving thy neighbor is expressive of what Christ means to each of us. Loving thy neighbor should not be instructed based on, amen, the socioeconomic level of our neighbor. Loving our neighbor should be instructive. We ought to tell our neighbors how to love us. Many of us wear a mask, not the cotton or linen mask that you wear on your face today. We wear emotional masks. We wear masks that cover and mask our emotions. We wear masks that cover and mask our heart troubles. Masks that cover the smile that oftentimes turn into a frown. Loving thy neighbor should be intentional. You should wake up every day with the love of God in your heart. Come into your job and leave your home and arise in your home with the love of God in your heart. Let it be your intent to love your neighbor. Lastly, loving your neighbor ought to be inviting. Inviting, that means that regardless to what we read in the news, regardless to how we vote, we ought to have an inviting love in our heart. For the word of God says, greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. I want to encourage each and every person in this room today to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Please join me this morning in a word of prayer. Father God, we're grateful today that you, O Lord, has assembled us here in this session to give us another chance, another day to explore the boundaries of our heart, that we can love beyond parties, that we can love beyond race, that we can love beyond votes, that we can love, oh God, those that despitefully use us. Wrap your loving arms around us, O Lord, not just physically, but give us, O Lord, the opportunity to love and cherish you in our hearts. Grant us the power, O God, to echo the words of the great poet. Let us wear the mask that cover our cries, but let our tortured souls rise. Beneath our feet is long the mile, but let the world dream otherwise while we wear the mask. Father God, love us. Love us, oh Father, beyond our own will. Give us the power, oh God, to continue to love each other as brothers and sisters. And Father, we will be remiss in our words and our prayer this morning if we didn't lift up one of the constituents of this house who's now at the hospital with her husband. We pray, God, right now that you will keep her in the hollows of your hand. Give her comfort in knowing, oh Father, that our brothers and sisters here are lifting her up in prayer. In the wonderful, blessed name of Jesus, we pray. We say thank you, and we say amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which I stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.
Let's get a picture here. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits read the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct. I would like to say one more thing. You know what a wise man Benjamin Franklin was. He said that 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
That was my favorite part of your report. That was good. Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on 59 moves following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1170 by Representative Dickerson of the 113th, Belton of the 112th, Welch of the 110th, and Rutledge of the 109th. Bill being entitled an act to amend an act to provide for a change in the compensation of the sheriff.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1171 by Representative Dickerson of the 113th, Belton of the 112th, Welch of the 110th, and Rutledge of the 109th. Bill be entitled an act to authorize the Newton County to dissolve the Newton County Recreation Commission.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1172 by Representative Jones of the 53rd. Bill be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 1174 by Representative Dickerson of the 113th, Belton of the 112th, Rutledge of the 109th, and Welch of the 110th. Bill be entitled an act to create the Newton County Public Facilities Authority.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1175 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st. Bill be entitled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Port Wentworth.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1180 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th. Bill be entitled an act to repeal the amendment of the Constitution of the State of Georgia for the election of members of the Board of Education.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1181 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th and Jackson of the 128th. Bill be entitled an act to amend an act to fix the compensation of the members of the Board of Education in Johnson County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1182 by Representative Dubnik of the 29th. Bill be entitled an act to repeal an act creating the Hall County Family Connection Network.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1183 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, Smith of the 134th, and Buckner of the 137th. Bill be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of the town of Pine Mountain to levy an excise tax.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1184 by Representative Park of the 101st, Mitchell of the 88th, Bennett of the 94th, Hughley of the 136th, Dreyer of the 59th, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 7, Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to dispossessory proceedings.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1185 by Representative Allen of the 40th, Williams of the 37th, Robichaud of the 48th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Kennard of the 102nd, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions relative to law enforcement officers and agencies.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 1186 by Representative Bodie of the 62nd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Williams of the 168th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Gordon of the 163rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 6 of Chapter 7 of Title 17 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to change of venue.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 1187 by Representative Bodie of the 62nd, Henson of the 86th, Bennett of the 94th, McLaren of the 51st, Thomas of the 39th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 5 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to assault and battery.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 1188 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Williams of the 145th, Green of the 151st, Bonner of the 72nd, Gullett of the 19th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 51 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding torts.
Special Committee on Access to the Civil Justice System.
House Bill 1189 by Representative Dubnik of the 29th. Bill be titled Act to Repeal an Act creating the Hall County Commission for Children and Families.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 1190 by Representative Nguyen of the 89th, Shannon of the 84th, Bodie of the 62nd, Holly of the 111th, Hughley of the 136th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to justification and excuse.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Resolution 1508 by Representative Estration, the 104th, Fry, the 118th, Hogan of the 179th, and Williams, the 168th. A resolution creating a House Committee on implementing a State of Georgia Climate Resilience Plan.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Resolution 1522 by Representative Ralston VII. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Billy Burnett and dedicating a bridge in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1523 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, Mathis of the 144th, Pruitt of the 149th. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Johnny B. Hall and dedicating a bridge in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1524 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, Mathis of the 144th, Pruitt of the 149th. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Kipley Allen Brown and dedicating an intersection in his memory.
Transportation.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Houston of the 170th, being entitled an act to provide that future elections for the office of probate judge in Berrien County shall be nonpartisan elections.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill to be entitled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Brantley County to impose and collect county law and library fees as part of the court costs.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill, unnumbered House Bill, to be entitled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Pierce County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Corbett of the 174th to be entitled an act to authorize Magistrate Court of Charlton County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Pritchett of the 176th to be titled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Ware County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Purple of the 155th to be entitled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Coffee County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill to be entitled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Bacon County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Corbett of the 174th to be entitled an act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Charlton County to impose and collect county law library fees.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
Senate Bill 504 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd. Bill being entitled an act to provide for non-binding advisory referendum for the purpose of ascertaining whether the electors of Glynn County desire the Glynn County Board of Commissioners to abolish the Glynn County Police Department.
Governmental Affairs.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1169 by Representative Green of the 151st, a bill to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Shellman. House Bill 1173 by Representative Green of the 151st, a bill to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Bluffton. House Bill 1176 by Representative Jones of the 47th, a bill to amend an act to reincorporate the city of Mountain Park in the counties of Fulton and Cherokee. House Bill 1177 by Representative Benton of the 31st, a bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from City of Jefferson Independent School District ad valorem taxes, House Bill 1178, by Representative Benton of the 31st, a bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from City of Commerce Independent School District ad valorem taxes, House Bill 1179 by Representative Benton of the 31st and Gaines of the 117th, the bill to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from Jackson County School District ad valorem taxes. 3 second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Jan Tankers of the 160th District, Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had under consideration the following bills of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1115, do pass by sub. House Bill 1117, do pass. House Bill 1118, do pass. House Bill 1119, do pass. House Bill 1132, do pass. House Bill 1137, do pass. House Bill 1138, do pass. House Bill 1142, do pass. House Bill 1145, do pass. House Bill 1147, do pass. House Bill 1154, do pass. House Bill 1156, do pass. House Bill 1157, do pass. House Bill 1160, do pass. House Bill 1161, do pass. House Bill 1162, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
All right, we're going on now to the local calendar. Going on to the local calendar, third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 1115 by substitute by Representative Rogers of the 10th. House Bill 1117 by Representative Green of the 151st. House Bill 1118 by Representative LaRicchia of the 169th City of Douglas. House Bill 1119 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Paulding County. House Bill 1132 by Representative Mathis of the 144th City of Cochrane. House Bill 1137 by Representative Jackson, the 128th, Washington County. House Bill 1138 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Town of Argyle. House Bill 1142 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Forsyth County. House Bill 1145 by Representative Barton of the 5th, City of Calhoun. House Bill 1147 by Representative Pullen of the 131st, Upson County. House Bill 1154 by Representative Moore of the 1st, Dade County. House Bill 1156 by Representative Carson of the 46th, Cobb County. House Bill 1157 by Representative England of the 116th, Barrow County. House Bill 1160 by Representative Morris of the 156th, City of Uvalde. House Bill 1161 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, City of Blue Ridge. House Bill 1162 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, City of Blue Ridge. That completes the reading of the local calendar.
Okay, I understand now that the local calendar has been distributed to 341 and in the gallery. At this time, the chair would move that House Bill 1161 be removed from the local calendar and recommitted to the committee from whence it came. House Bill 1161. Mr. Clerk, would you read the caption?
House Bill 1161 by Representative Ralston. The 7th, the City of Blue Ridge. House Bill 1161 provides for staggered terms of the mayor and council members of the City of Blue Ridge.
On the motion that House Bill 1161 be recommitted to the committee from which it came, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar minus House Bill 1161? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will call the roll.
Alexander, Anulowitz, Barr, Barton, Belton, Bennett, Bentley, Benton, Beverly, Blackman, Bodie, Bruce, Burns, Carpenter, Carson, Chokus, Clark H., Collins, Cooper, Corbett, Dempsey, Dickey, Dollar, Drenner, Dubnik, Ostration, England, Irwin, Fleming, Fry, Gaines, Gardner, Glanton, Gravely, Harrell, Hatchett, Hawkins, Hitchens, Holcomb, Holmes, Houston, Hughley, Jackson M., Jaspers, Jones J., Kelly, Kendrick, Knight, LaHood, Laricchia, Lumsden, Martin, Mathiak, McCall, Morris G., Newton, Nix, Oliver, Parrish, Parsons, Petrie, Perkel, Powell, Reeves, Rhodes, Rich, Ridley, Rutledge, Scoggins, Setzler, Silcox, Smith R., Smith V., Smyrie, Stevens R., Tankersley, Tanner, Tarvin, Taylor, Thomas E., Trammell, Washburn, Watson, Welch, Werkheiser, Wiedauer, Williams A., Williamson, Yurda, Allen, Bazemore, Bernau, Cannon, Carter, Clark D., Clark J., Cook, Davis, Douglas, Dreyer, Donahue, Earhart, Evans, Frazier, Gilligan, Gertler, Henson, Hill, Hogan, Holland, Holly, Hobson, Howard, Hutchinson, Jackson D., Jones S., Jones T., Jones V., Couch, Kennard, Lopez Romero, Marin, McLean, McLaurin, McLeod, Meeks, Mitchell, Moore B., Moore C., Morris M., Nelson, Wen, Paris, Prince, Pullen, Robichaux, Saints, Schofield, Scott, Shannon, Sharper, Smith M, Stevens M, Stevenson, Thomas A M, Turner, Walensky, Wilkerson, Williams MF, Williams N, Wilson, Beasley Teague,
Yes, yes.
Bonner,
Yes,
Buckner,
yes,
Burchett,
yes,
Caldwell,
yes,
Campbell,
yes,
Cantrell,
yes,
Dickerson,
yes,
Dukes,
yes,
Gamble,
yes,
Gilliard,
yes,
Gordon,
yes,
Green,
yes,
Gullett,
yes,
Jones, JB,
yes,
Kirby,
yes,
Lott,
yes,
Mathis,
yes,
Metz, Momtahan,
yes,
Park, Pruitt,
yes,
Rogers,
yes,
Singleton,
Yes.
Stovall,
yes,
Williams R, Beasley Teague,
Here.
yes,
Bennett, Clark D, Cook, Fleming, Jones T, LaHood, Moore B, Oliver, Perkle, Prince, Reeves, Tankersley,
Okay, Chair's going to ask members to examine the board and make sure that your vote is recorded the way you intended for it to be. We'll take a moment for you to do that. Okay, Mr. Clerk, you can lock the machines. On the passage of the bills on the local calendar, minus House Bill 1161, the ayes are 158, the nays are 0. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. We're going on now to morning orders. We're going on to morning orders. Let me remind those of you who are going to be speaking that the rules of the House provide at this point of the session 10 minutes total for all morning orders. So I can either allocate that amongst you, or you can be a good neighbor and just sort of limit your comments so that all your colleagues can be heard. We'll try it that way first. No limitation, 10 minutes total. Whoever's in the well at the end of the 10 minutes, the mic's closed off. Chair recognizes Representative Kendrick for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. For the sake of time, I will just slice my announcement, my morning order in half. But this past weekend, the State Bar of Georgia swore in Attorney Dawn M. Jones as the 58th President of the State Bar of Georgia. She is only the second African-American in the history of the State Bar to be sworn in. The first was Attorney Patrice Perkins Hooker, and both of them are members of my fabulous sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So I just wanted to congratulate Attorney Dawn M. Jones being sworn in, the 58th President of the State Bar of Georgia. Thank you.
Chair recognizes for a morning order Representative Al Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to take an opportunity really to remind you that when we went on suspension, I left here with one of my saddest days, almost heartbroken and downtrodden. Because I wore a mask that day, I was the object of jokes and disdain, and I felt so alone. It's so good to see that you have caught up with me at last. Now, what I really stood up to say is that while we know every state office works hard, and goodness knows the Labor Department has been overwhelmed, but there are far too many citizens that have filed for unemployment since March that have never gotten a check. And the people that need this need it the most. Service workers and other lower paid people. I have calls every day of people who can get no response and certainly have never gotten a check. That's tough. We've got to figure out how to help these people. In 2020, when we have technology like never before, why in the world do we have citizens who are still not getting an unemployment check? Just give it some thought. Thank you. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Roger Bruce for a morning order. Chair recognizes Representative Matthew Wilson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was a historic day with the U.S. Supreme Court affirming that LGBTQ workers cannot be fired because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. It was a consolidated opinion in 3 cases, actually, one of which featured Gerald Bostock, a Clayton County man who was fired from his job as a child welfare services coordinator after his government employer discovered that he played in a gay softball league not far from this very Capitol building. But LGBTQ people will still face discrimination in public accommodations and housing and have no legal remedy for hate crimes committed in Georgia or 3 other states. Yesterday's ruling does not address that. It's something we have to do. There were a lot of ironies in yesterday's decision, but a big one that struck me. It was based on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was originally passed after decades of black protests, riots, and activism. As my good friend Robbie reminded me this morning, fighting for black civil rights gives us all civil rights. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Stovall for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. There is definitely racial unrest in this world, more specifically in the state. There is a lot of healing that's needed, but understanding each other's perceptions, whether good or bad, is the first step. On last Friday, I was joined by my seatmates, Representative Cantrell, Jones, and Morris, for a conversation on race relations. I appreciate them because it was a start to a much-needed convo about race relations in this state and starting with state leaders. And I encourage our state and federal leaders to do more. There needs to be a unified action strategy that breaks down the racial implications for how each sector operates. Then we can start to see systematic changes because we're changing the system. And remember, white privilege doesn't mean you haven't had hard times, but that one skin color didn't cause the hard times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to bring attention to the pain felt by mothers and families who are grieving in the state of Georgia due to excessive force. You probably already know the names Jamarian Robinson, Shali Tilson, Kane Rogers, Jarvis Likes, Javis Benjamin, DeAndre Phillips, Oscar Kane, Jabril Robinson, Ahmaud Arbery, and many more that fill up a list that stretches to 130 names in the state of Georgia. As state representatives who stretch across the state, we all represent their families today, the highways where the uprisings are happening, and we must be reflective in our own individual conscience and care. Last Sunday, our office hosted 2 vigils in partnership with the Atlanta Beltline, Ebenezer Baptist Church, surrounding neighbors and artists, and local elected officials. Before I head back to my seat, I wanted to remind everyone that the Wendy's that is in ruins is just 5 blocks from here. The address is 125 University Avenue Southwest. If you would just stop by, hear the people's outcry, pay your respects, lay some flowers, our community will thank you. And at this time, I would like to ask for a moment of silence, specifically for District 58's Rayshard Brooks. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Abel Mabel Thomas for a morning order.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and members of the distinguished body. I'm glad to see all of you. What I would like to do is to say the name and have us remember Breonna Taylor, who was an essential worker, a EMT, who was in her home in Louisville, Kentucky, and a group of police, plainclothes police, rammed the door and busted into her house and shot 22 times, and 8 of the shots killed her. And basically, they never identified themselves. But the worst thing about it is the person that they were looking for had already been arrested that day. Come on, y'all. So in other words, I know a little bit about no-knock warrants. If y'all, a lot of times when they say the names of the people who have been killed under police misconduct, they never mention Katherine Johnson. Katherine Johnson was the 92-year-old grandmother that was killed in 2006. It did go national, but it was no video. But the reality of it is that that case was a case that happened in my district, and I was able to lead the charge on that particular event. And what I just want you to know that sometimes there is justice. In this case, we got $5 million for the family. We disbanded the Red Dog crew, which is an elite super cop situation in Atlanta. We reinstated the Citizen Review Board. We got rid of something called DC-6, where you could come into an area and they would say this is a known drug area, and they could put you on the ground and frisk you, and frisk you, take you to jail, whatever, because it was so-called known drug area. And the other thing is 3 police officers went to jail. So I know a little bit about no-knock warrants, and I tell you, they're not good. Because what happened is even after they shot the grandmother 30 times, they tried to say that she was a drug dealer, which we knew that wasn't true. I mean, a 92-year-old grandmother, I don't think so. So in other words, there was a police cover-up. That's what made it so bad. It was a no-knock killing and then a cover-up to try to say that she was doing something illegal. So all I'm saying to you is that nobody needs to die in their homes because the sanctity of our homes, we need to be able to feel like if we at sleep after 12 o'clock or whatever, it was after 12 when they came to bust in her door, Breonna Taylor. So I just want to say that we want justice for Breonna Taylor.
Ladies'
Thank
time
you.
has expired.
Thank you so much, everybody.
That completes our time for morning orders. Representative Bruce, I will sign you up right now for tomorrow. Thank you. We are now going on to the rules calendar. There was one measure that was postponed yesterday to the next legislative day. Chair would ask the clerk to read the caption to Senate Bill 43.
Senate Bill 43 by Senator Payne of the 54th, Mullis of the 53rd, Miller of the 49th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 82, Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to revenue bonds, so as to revise the definition of the term undertaking as it relates to electric systems. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Economic Development and Tourism. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter to present the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. I come before you to present Senate Bill 43. It's a pretty simple bill that only affects the people of my city. It would allow my city utility, Dalton Utilities, to issue revenue bonds in expansion of electrical service. Those revenue bonds would have to be approved by the mayor and council that are elected by the citizens of my community. We are the only utility in the state of Georgia besides Chickamauga and Hampton that have to do this. It was put on us as an anti-competitive measure back in the 1970s so that we would not expand our service. It also happened in the 70s that this was on gas and water. Since that time, those two have fell off. We've had those taken off, but this one is still there. We've been working on this bill for 3 years. It's really important to my community and to my utility, which provides 1/3 of the property tax revenue for my city. We also provide the lowest utility rates in the United States. We are half the rates of any EMC and Georgia Power in the state of Georgia. So I'd ask that your favorable consideration on this bill. This bill will allow my utility the financial flexibility it needs to compete for economic development projects, and it will also allow my utility to react for such things as this COVID pandemic that we saw a substantial decrease in industry's use of our utilities. So again, I appreciate your favorable consideration, and I'll yield for questions.
I don't see any questions. You apparently do not have questions.
Well, I yield the will.
We have one member that wished to be heard on the measure. Chair recognizes Representative Drenner to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I needed a moment to let my glasses unfog. I rise today in opposition to Senate Bill 43. And as I was thinking about this particular measure last night before class, I wanted to, was either market intervention or the role of government, or what was the real issue that I had a problem with. So in economics, there's a concept called moral hazard. Moral hazard is where one party has an incentive to take risk without taking responsibility. So what that means, if this bill passes, the moral risk that I'm talking about is removing the right to vote from the citizens within this particular area. Now, the author of the bill has described this measure as one that is seeking parity with other municipal electric providers. I had to stop and ask why. Why? What parity is missing? Obviously, when this commission was formed, there was a provision that was put in place that required a public referendum. What changed? We are supposed to feel self-assured that the city council and a superior court judge will validate the bond process. Well, I'm not assured. This is what I know to be true. Number one, not all people are engaged equally, so this creates the moral hazard. Number two, last week we had a primary election that was a disaster. This bill is not about long lines, is not about working machines, it's not about untrained poll workers. This bill is about a government taking. It takes the right of a person's vote away. We would call this a windshield vote. A windshield vote. I can see the mail piece right now. Your photo with the caption that says, John Smith supports taking the right to vote away from Georgians. I ask you to vote no. Thank you. I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. We have, is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. There is a minority report on the bill, and by the rules of the House, 20 minutes is allocated to the minority report. 20 minutes is allocated to the chairman's time. Chair recognizes for the minority report Representative Derrick Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to yield the balance of my time to Representative Moore.
Gentleman has that right. Representative Moore is recognized for the balance of the minority report time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues. It is, despite current circumstances, a pleasure to be back here with you all and to see all your friendly faces even behind these masks. I do, however, regret that under these circumstances and all of the bills that we could be voting on, that this one made the priority list. I don't think that we should have to be here debating this bill when we have people here risking their lives and their health, including the lives and health of their families, to be here to vote. But since we are being asked to vote on this bill, I will treat it as though it is a normal bill and a normal day. I stand here in opposition to SB 43. It seems like a very simple bill. In fact, it's only one page. How much damage could be done with one page? Well, I hope that you will hear me out and base your vote with an open mind and the information presented to you today. You heard the sponsor of this bill mention that we've been working on this bill for 3 years. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because this body has rejected this bill multiple times. It started as a piece of local legislation, but the local delegation of Whitfield County did not come to the consensus to move this bill forward as local legislation. So some of the members of that delegation did what we see sometimes in this chamber, unfortunately, which is that they have transformed what should be a local bill into a general bill, which puts it before this whole chamber to evaluate. That's why we're here, because this bill did not work as local legislation. Procedurally, what happened with this bill is that we voted on it last year on sine die. It initially had passed with very thin margin, but on reconsideration, this bill decided, you know what? Let's remand this back to committee so we can reconsider it. And that's what we're doing now. We're reconsidering it. Unfortunately, though, there have been 0 changes to this bill. It is the exact same bill that we rejected on sine die of last year. Substantively, I wanted to explain a little bit about what this bill does. Some of the previous speakers had spoken to it. But quite simply, this bill does one thing. It takes away the right to vote from the people of Dalton, Georgia. And you don't have to take my word for it. I can walk you through the bill. For those of you who have it in front of you, again, SB 43. We're looking at primarily lines 13 through 16. And this is in reference to the construction of new electric utilities. It says that any revenue certificates issued by a government body with electric utility assets that have a net book value of less than $300 million shall, before being undertaken, be authorized by a majority of those voting. All right? The key words here are a government body with electric utility assets with a net book value of less than $300 million. That means if you're an electric city and your electric utility assets are less than $300 million, you have to have a vote. If you are an electric city with assets greater than $300 million, you are no longer required to hold a vote on whether or not to issue a bond. This is very specific and very tricky language that is designed to apply only to one utility company, and that's Dalton Utility. It seems like it's generally applicable, but by the way it is surgically written, it only applies to one company, and that was by design. They're not even trying to hide it. They're saying that this is only applicable to one company. But this is what we're being asked to do. If a utility company is worth more than $300 million, if their assets are worth more than $300 million, they no longer have to put a bond referendum to a vote of the people. So why do the proponents of this bill want it? What are the arguments for it? Well, we've heard some of that today. But if you were in the Energy, Utilities, and Telecom Committee, what you heard was that a couple of arguments. Well, first, the city of Dalton is being hamstrung by this voting requirement. I was like, okay, well, what projects do you have that are currently being hampered due to people's, because you have to have a referendum? Well, the answer was there are no projects. Well, certainly you've received, the city has received some kind of proposal, that they're considering. No, there's no proposals. It's like, well, do you have a budget of what you expect you'll need, how much money you need to raise through a bond referendum? No, we don't know. Essentially what they're asking us to do is to grant the City Council of Dalton, Georgia, a blank check for no plan and no citizen oversight. I also asked the question in committee, I said, well, has the City of Dalton ever tried to have a referendum to get the bonds issued that they need to raise the money that they need? And the answer at the time in committee was, well, I don't know, but I'll get back to you on that. Well, sure enough, 2 minutes after the cameras stopped running, the answer materialized. And it turns out that, in fact, the City of Dalton had issued a bond referendum. And believe it or not, that bond referendum had been approved by the City of Dalton, the people of Dalton. They approved it. The city got exactly what they wanted. You know how much that bond was for? $125 million. That's a pretty big stamp of approval by the people, but the people got to choose. The people got to have a voice in that process. So then the next argument is, well, you know, this is, we heard the term anti-competitive, that the bill as, the law as it currently sits is anti-competitive, and we need parity with other MEAG cities. MEAG standing for Municipal Electric Association of Georgia. There are some electric cities that have formed an association with other cities. So, and it is true that they do not require a referendum to issue a bond for the MEAG association. But the purpose of that is that when you are part of an association, the risk and the burden on creating this indebtedness is spread among multiple stakeholders, and it is overseen by a larger board. So the risk is minimized when you spread it out over multiple cities. But here's the other thing, is that if any of those individual MEAG cities wanted to issue a bond only for their city, they would have to hold a referendum. So this is not about parity with MEAG cities. In fact, this would grant the city of Dalton extra benefits that even MEAG cities do not enjoy. There is also the argument put forth that, well, don't worry, even if we take away the right of the people of Dalton to vote on a bond referendum, they voted for city council and the mayor. So because they voted for the mayor and city council are in a position to make these decisions on behalf of the people. Well, first, I called up some of the Dalton City Council members. And it turns out they're not as unified in this measure as a letter presented to the committee would suggest. One of the members admitted to me that he didn't quite understand the issue to begin with. He felt pressured to sign the letter saying that City Council supported this measure. And in fact, he opposed it, but he didn't know how to effectively oppose it. So that's why you and me are here in a position now to stand up for the people of the city of Dalton, who are not unified in this, who want citizen oversight and want to preserve the right to vote. But beyond that, I would posit that if anybody would trust the residents of the city of Dalton to vote for their city council, then why not trust them to vote on a referendum that could cost them potentially millions of dollars? Why not put the trust in the people? Why are we trying to take that right to vote away? It's further said that, well, you know, a Superior Court judge is going to oversee this, so it's fine. That's another layer of oversight. Well, judges are not in the position to make policy decisions. Their job is to make sure that the process is done right, that the paperwork is filed, and that it doesn't go against the law. But right now, if the city of Dalton were to try to do this, they would be running afoul of the law. That's why they're here. That's why this one entity is here, to try to change the law, to try to bend it in their favor. And it's like, well, you know, investors won't buy the bonds if they don't think they're a good investment. So that's another layer of oversight. If it's a bad investment, bond purchasers will not buy it. Well, you know what? Bonds are a good investment because it is required by law that they get paid back. They are nearly impossible to get discharged in bankruptcy. So of course purchasers are going to buy the bonds, but that doesn't make it good policy. The other argument that's put forth for this bill is that, well, you know, it's just the tree huggers that don't like this bill because it has something to do with Plant Vogel. Well, that's a straw man argument, all right? The debate about Plant Vogel, of which Dalton Utilities is an investor, that ship has sailed, right? Plant Vogel is gonna come online no matter what. But what we're talking about here is that this was the board members of Dalton Utility made a bad investment. They didn't realize when they became a 1.5% investor in Plant Vogel that they would have $14 billion in cost overruns and a 5-year delay. But that's not the fault of the ratepayers in Dalton. It's not their fault that the stakeholders in Dalton Utilities made a bad investment. This is just a classic case of privatizing the profits and socializing the losses. That's all this is. So I'm asking you to vote no on this bill, and I want to talk about what your vote on this bill means today. First of all, I want to remind this body that these proceedings are recorded, and the people of Dalton are watching. They're watching. And they're watching to see what this body does when it comes to their right to vote. A yes vote means, ironically, that you are voting to take away somebody else's right to vote. You might even be thinking to yourself, well, why does the representative from Peachtree Corners, Georgia, care about the city of Dalton? Quite simply, it's because the decisions we make in this House affect everyone in Georgia. Everyone. It may not directly affect my constituents, but this is the decision that was put forth to us today by virtue of the fact that this failed as local legislation. And if there was ever a bill in this House that would take away the right to vote from the people of Augusta, Georgia, of Blue Ridge, Georgia, of Brunswick, Georgia, I would vote no on that bill. So if you vote no on this bill, what does that mean? If you vote no on this bill, that means you are standing up for the right to vote, that you are protecting the right to vote of the people of Dalton, Georgia. Nothing substantively changes. Nothing changes. The city of Dalton can continue to be a wonderful, thriving community as they have been for decades with this law currently in place as it currently stands. The city of Dalton wants to issue a bond referendum, they just would simply follow what is currently law. They would put it to a vote. And if the people of Dalton, Georgia want to issue the referendum, then they'll vote yes. Why would we take that opportunity away from them? Quite ironic, isn't it, that we would vote to take away somebody else's right to vote? If you voted for this bill last time and you're thinking, well, you know, I can't go back now, I voted for it once before, let me assure you that is exactly what reconsideration is for, which is what we voted for last time. You are allowed to reconsider your vote now. And I would remind you too that there is no better time than the present to do the right thing. And the right thing is to vote no on SB 43. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Speaker. I yield the well.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I will take one question.
Actually, the questioner is no longer at his desk, so.
Okay. I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. We now have the chairman's time. Chair recognizes the chair of the Public Utilities or Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee, Chairman Parsons, for the chairman's time.
Thank you, Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I'm going to yield, in a moment, I'm going to yield my time back to the sponsor of the bill. I did want to say that this bill's come through Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications 2 times, been voted out. I don't recall anybody, any city councilman from up there coming down and speaking against it. And I'm speaking from my recollections. I don't have my notes. I wasn't prepared for this. I don't remember any opposition from that area. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't recall any. I do know that Representative Carpenter's worked really hard on this bill, and I appreciate that. He's presented us with all the information that we had asked of him in committee. There's nothing wrong with this bill. I would ask you to vote for it, but I'm going to, Speaker, I'm going to leave the rest of my time to Representative Carpenter. And I'm going to yield the well.
Gentleman has that right. Representative Carpenter is recognized for the balance of the chairman's time.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Chairman. So I stand up here today kind of appalled because I listen to all these people talk about the voters of the city of Dalton, where I've lived my entire life, where I feed 1,200 people a day. I know my city. I know my voters, and they are not against this bill. I'm appalled that someone says this is window dressing for a campaign, because that's exactly what we just saw. We saw grandstanding for a campaign that says, I stood up for the right of people to vote. Well, that's funny, because I haven't seen either one of these representatives drop a bill that would require their city, when they're undertaking electrical growth through MEAG, to do a voter referendum. Strictly grandstanding, folks. This bill is something that my utility needs to be flexible and my people support, and it was brought before you as a general bill because it had, in the 70s, it was passed as a general bill, so it had to be fixed this way, unfortunately. There has been some local politics involved that have been not the best, I agree, but I can assure you that the citizens of my community understand this bill. We've held public hearings. Like I said, my city council completely voted for it. Even if the gentleman that she's talking about said that he didn't know, he felt pressure, it would have still been 4-1 vote of people supporting this bill. This is about allowing my utility the flexibility to compete for large electrical projects. We've had a company come in for $12 million worth of transmission growth. We have to cash flow that out of pocket. And that's unacceptable in this economic environment. My utility has a debt-to-equity ratio of 5%. 5%, folks. That means if you own a $100,000 house, you would owe $5,000 on that house. That's where my utility stands. It is a strong utility, and all they're asking is to be able to be flexible in case projects come along, for them to make a decision in a timely manner, so they don't have to wait to November to make that decision. Maybe those decisions in the 70s were a lot easier because you had time, but economic development in the state of Georgia has changed, and those decisions have to be made on a monthly basis. It has to happen quick. So yeah, we asked to do this. We asked to do this not because we had projects in the pipeline, but because when they did come in the pipeline, we could respond in a timely manner. And that's why you don't go borrow money when you need money. You set up a line of credit before you borrow money, so if something comes along, you're ready to go. And that's what we're asking for, and I appreciate your support, and thank you for your time.
Do you have questions if you care to yield?
Absolutely.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dollar to your left for a question.
Gentlemen, you?
I do.
I apologize to you and Representative Moore. This question was supposed to be for her, but I had to run upstairs to Senate Rules to present a bill. I just wanted to ask you the question, and because the way I view this is that any member who votes against this that has not dropped a bill to give their citizens the same rights that they are bemoaning this, I find that to be problematic at best and hypocritical at worst. And I wanted to get the Minority Report Speaker's opinion on that, and I'd like your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I did some research. Representative Moore's dropped a lot of bills, and not one of them discusses the ability for the people of her district to vote for electric revenue bonds. And I need to explain that a revenue bond is not a tax pledge bond. The taxpayers are not on the hook for these bonds. It is based off solely the revenue of the utility company.
Gentleman is cautioned that calling out a member by name is inappropriate and violates the rules of the House.
I apologize.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Oliver to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
With
grandstanding or hypocritical. I'd like to ask you, please, sir, whether or not Georgia Power supports this bill.
Georgia Power supports this bill.
Have you ever seen an instance in your short career or my longer career where Georgia Power has actually lost a vote on the floor of the House?
I've only been here 3 years, so
Would it be perhaps a good idea that every decade or 2 or 3 that Georgia Power loses a vote in the interest of the people's right to vote in Georgia?
yeah, I wouldn't choose this one to be the one, though.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the issue, right? We've talked to the EMCs, we've talked to Georgia Power. They all understand this position we're in. So, and we are part of Vogel, no doubt about it. But we've paid it, we've cash flowed it out of our own pockets, and so we're in good shape. But we just want to be able to respond in a quicker manner.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question.
Thanks, gentlemen. Yield.
I do.
You know, very often we ask questions in this House that we know the answer to. They're rhetorical. This is not a rhetorical question. It's an actual question. I do not know the answer to it. And if you'd yield, the lady made reference to earlier in her presentation that this would make Dalton different. If the vote were to happen to pass this, they'd be different than others, that you had misrepresented somehow what this does, that this would give a special privilege that would be out of step with other electric cities. What was referred to by that? I didn't understand what that meant. I'm not pointing fingers either way.
Right.
What that means.
So that's not the truth. So currently, the city of Marietta, they have a power utility company. If they want to expand service, or if they want to buy into a project, they do that without a voter approval. Your city and council approves those bonds without a voter approval. If they want to buy into the project or not. So it's not, there's literally 3 cities in the state of Georgia that have to do this. 3 city utilities: Chickamauga, City of Hampton, and Dalton. The other 2 had no interest in being part of this legislation, and so that's why it's strictly Dalton Utilities.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
And again, I'd shared with folks in the hallway who are working this. It's a very high bar for me to support taking a referendum vote away from individuals, but I'm listening to the logic of what you're saying. So it's got to clear a very high bar in my mind to get there. Having said that, how did this get in place in the first place? Why 3 cities versus others? Is this something that 10 years ago was put in place as a control that we're now undoing?
It happened in the 70s. In the 70s, it was put in because they were trying to pressure Dalton to join the MEAC cities, and we said we've got a good industry base, and we chose not to. But this was a pressure tool to get us to join the cities. It's my understanding. I was yet to be born, but
so how did that work by saying? Hey,
it was in my nursery rhymes as a child.
So to your knowledge, it was a hey, join, but we'll put the referendum requirement in as sort of as a protection measure, kind of an in between.
No, it was basically, if you join this, you won't have to do this, but if you don't join, you're going to have to do this. You see what I'm saying?
No, sir.
So it was you join the MEAC cities, and you won't have to do the voter referendum.
Okay.
If you don't, then we're going to make you get a voter referendum. That's what happened, and so it was a pressure to join. And we said, no, we don't want to join because 70% of our customers are industry-based, not residential-based. So when you talk about people that don't have a voice, the industry, that 70% of the customers have no ability to help their utility float revenue bonds because they don't vote.
And you said 70% of your base is
industry.
Okay.
90% of the jobs in the Northwest Georgia corridor are reliant on this cheap power to keep going. So it's a huge economic development and huge economic issue in my district.
Thank you, sir.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to your right for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield? Just a clarification question. So what I'm hearing is that the reason why this is a general bill, and we've got to go and do this as a general bill, versus what the minority report and presenter said, is because of exactly what you just said, that there were 3 cities in the 70s that were put down in general code. And the only way to undo that is doing exactly what we're doing here. And that is in essence why we're doing this, and it will put parity with the rest of them who chose to join the MEAG way back then. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Do you further yield?
Yeah, I'll take one more, I think.
One more.
This was
Chair
nice.
recognizes Chairman Houston.
I'll
to
take
your
it.
right.
Well, this is a very simple question. Is it not true that this was in Ways and Means at one time?
It was in Ways and Means 3 years ago, and I actually, when the Senate bill came over, I requested that it go to Ways and Means, but because
Is it not true that you requested it to take out of Ways and Means because you couldn't get it passed?
No, this year I asked to have it put in Ways and Means. And
Oh, you did?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know if the clerk's here, but I went and spoke to the clerk. So, but
well.
thank you. All right, I yield the well. Thank you, Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Gentleman has yielded the well. The previous question has been ordered. Mr. Clerk, why don't we ring the bell and get a little order here. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 43 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will unlock the machines and call the roll.
Alexander. Anulowitz, Bear, Barr, Barton, Belton, Bennett, Bentley, Benton, Beverly, Blackman, Bodie, Bruce, Burns, Carpenter, Carson, Chokus, Clark, H. Collins, Cooper, Corbett, Dempsey, Dickey, Dollar, Drenner, Dubnik. Abstration, England, Irwin, Fleming, Fry, Gaines, Gardner, Glanton, Gravely, Harrell, Hatchett, Hawkins, Hitchens, Holcomb, Holmes, Houston, Hughley, Jackson M, Jaspers, Jones J, Kelly, Kendrick, Knight, LaHood, Laricchia, Lumsden, Martin, Mathiak, McCall, Morris G, Newton, Nix, Oliver, Parrish, Parsons, Petrie, Perkel, Powell, Reeves, Rhodes, Rich, Ridley, Rutledge, Scoggins, Setzler, Silcox, Smith R, Smith V, Smyrie, Stevens R, Tankersley, Tanner, Tarvin, Taylor, Thomas E, Trammell, Washburn, Watson, Welch, Werkheiser, Wiedauer, Williams A, Williamson, Yurda, Allen, Bazemore, Bernal, Cannon, Carter, Clark D, Clark J, Cook, Davis, Douglas, Dreyer, Donahue, Earhart, Evans, Frazier, Gilligan, Gertler, Henson, Hill, Hogan, Holland, Holly, Hobson, Howard, Hutchinson, Jackson D, Jones S, Jones T, Jones V, Couch, Kennard, Lopez Romero, Marin, McLean, McLaurin, McLeod, Meeks, Mitchell, Moore B, Morris C, Morris M, Nelson, Wen, Paris, Prince, Pullen, Robichaux, Saints, Schofield, Scott, Shannon, Sharper, Smith M, Stevens M, Stevenson, Thomas A M, Turner, Walensky, Wilkerson, Williams MF, Williams N, Wilson, Beasley Teague,
No.
Bonner, Bonner,
Yes.
Buckner,
No.
Burchett,
No.
Caldwell,
No.
Campbell,
Yes.
Cantrell,
Yes.
Dickerson,
No.
Dukes,
No.
Gamble,
Yes.
Gilliard,
No.
Gordon,
No.
Green,
Yes.
Gullett,
No.
Jones JB,
No.
Kirby,
Yes.
Lott,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Metz,
No.
Momtahan,
Yes.
Park,
No.
Pruitt, Rogers,
Yes.
Singleton,
No.
Stovall,
No.
Williams R,
No.
Barton, Burns, Clark D, Holcomb, Jones J, Jones S, Jones T, Jones, V. Martin. Todd.
Okay, the rules of the House provide that if you're on the floor, you must vote. You must vote. So look at the board, Mr. Clerk. I think we've had one or two come in.
Martin. Jones, T.
Have all members now voted? Have all members voted? Take a moment and look. Mr. Clerk, you may lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 43, the ayes are 91, the nays are 75. This bill having received the requisite. Requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. What purpose does the majority caucus whip rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Senate Bill 410 be moved from Governmental Affairs to Ways and Means. Both chairmen are in agreement.
Representative Kelly has moved that Senate Bill 410 be moved from Governmental Affairs to the Ways and Means Committee. Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 410 by Senator Kennedy, the 18th Dugan to the 30th Gooch, the 51st Mill of the 49th, being entitled an act to amend Code Section 48.5, 311 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the creation of county boards of equalization.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 410 be moved from Governmental Affairs to Ways and Means, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Chair recognizes Chairman Welch for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to H.R. House Resolution 1023, LC number 412448S.
Chairman Welch has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1023. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 1023 by Representative Welch, the 110th Abstration, the 104th Fleming, the 121st, and others, proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that the people of the state may petition the judiciary for declaratory relief from certain acts of the state or certain local governments or officers.
Chair recognizes Chairman Welch to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, you will recall that this chamber has initiated over 5 years an attempt to waive sovereign immunity.
This House will be in order. This is an important matter that we took up prior to suspension.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if I could have your attention, this is a constitutional amendment. This legislation is the heaviest decision we can make as a body when we go to present to the voters an amendment to our state constitution. This is an amendment that would allow the citizens of the state of Georgia to sue in state court to protect their constitutional rights and to ensure that government follows the laws in which we adopt. It does not provide for damages or attorney's fees unless this body subsequently decides to adopt a law that would allow for that. It protects those who are in public service across this state, the individuals, because the only way that you can currently attack a decision by a local government or by a state official is to sue that person individually in his or her personal capacity. This would undo that. This would mean that the suit would be brought against the government itself and not the individuals. Imagine, as a public servant, you having to pay out of pocket a defense for a decision that you made in this chamber that you thought was right, but was challenged. Imagine as a local government that being the same case. This constitutional amendment would rectify that wrong in our current system. It was only 5 years ago that you could bring suit against the local government or the state government to enjoin an unconstitutional action. The Supreme Court has rendered decisions that have changed that. And thus it is for our responsibility as legislators to put before the people a check on that judicial decision, to allow the people of the state of Georgia to petition their courts to protect their constitutional rights. You will recall that all we're doing is giving the keys to the courthouse back to the people. And your vote today will allow them to do that. Mr. Speaker, I do want to thank you for your leadership on this measure. I called and spoke to you this summer about coming back to the General Assembly, and you said that I told you this was an important measure to me, and you agreed. Although, Mr. Speaker, I thought I got the short end of the stick there. I thought we'd be done by April. Certainly we're not. But the people's business goes on, and it's our job and our duty under the Constitution to perform that duty, and we are here to do that. I also want to thank former Chairman Wendell Willard, who pushed for these amendments in statute many years ago, Chairman Fleming for his support. I want to pay my respects to Senator John Kennedy, who worked hard in the Senate to move this measure forward, Senator Jesse Stone, Lieutenant Governor and his office, specifically Regina Quick. We've had assistance from judges, from the Attorney General and his office, from members of Legislative Council, Julius Tolbert and Rick Ruskell. This measure has been worked on by attorneys outside of this chamber, attorneys inside this chamber, not the least of which is the Minority Leader, Bob Trammell. I appreciate all of your support. This has truly been a bipartisan measure, and it has been the leadership in this chamber over the last 5 years that has moved this measure forward. And I would ask for your favorable consideration on the motion to agree to the Senate changes. Those changes I've approved and I think narrowed the issues, made this constitutional amendment better, and I hope that the people of Georgia will agree and put this into our Constitution to protect their rights. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll take questions.
You have a question. Chair recognizes Chairman Dollar to your left for a question.
Thank you. Do you gentlemen yield?
I do.
Just a point of clarification, you referenced government. Does this apply to both local governments as well as the state?
It does, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I would add that in this process, ACCG and GMA have remained neutral on the subject, understanding the importance of it from a constitutional perspective. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well. Thank you so much for your
Gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1023, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines and call the roll.
Alexander, Anulowitz, Barr, Barton, Belton, Bennett, Bentley, Benton, Beverly, Blackman, Bodie, Bruce, Burns, Carpenter, Carson, Chokus, Clark H., Collins, Cooper, Corbett, Dempsey, Dickey, Dollar, Drenner, Dubnik, Abstration, England, Irwin, Fleming, Fry, Gaines, Gardner, Glanton, Gravely, Harrell, Hatchett, Hawkins, Hitchens, Holcomb, Holmes, Houston, Hughley, Jackson M., Jaspers, Jones J., Kelly, Kendrick, Knight, LaHood, LaRicchia, Lumsden, Martin, Mathiak, McCall, Morris G., Newton, Nix, Oliver, Parrish, Parsons, Petrie, Perkle, Powell, Reeves, Rhodes, Rich, Ridley, Rutledge, Scoggins, Setzler, Silcox, Smith R., Smith V., Smyrie, Stevens R., Tankersley, Tanner, Tarvin, Taylor, Thomas E., Trammell, Washburn, Watson, Welch, Werkheiser, Wiedauer, Williams A., Williamson, Yurda, Allen, Bazemore, Bernal, Cannon, Carter, Clark D., Clark J., Cook, Davis, Douglas, Dreyer, Donahue, Earhart, Evans, Frazier, Gilligan, Gertler, Henson, Hill, Hogan, Holland, Holly, Hobson, Howard, Hutchinson, Jackson D., Jones S., Jones T., Jones V., Couch, Kennard, Lopez Romero, Marin, McLean, McLaurin, McLeod, Meeks, Mitchell, Moore B., Moore C., Morris M., Nelson, Wen, Paris, Prince, Poland, Robichaud, Saints, Schofield, Scott, Shannon, Sharper, Smith M., Stevens M., Stevenson, Thomas A. M., Turner, Walensky, Wilkerson, Williams M.F., Williams N., Wilson, Beasley Teague,
Yes.
Bonner, Bonner,
Yes.
Buckner, Buckner,
Yes.
Burchett,
Yes.
Caldwell, Caldwell,
Yes.
Campbell, Campbell,
Yes.
Cantrell, Cantrell,
Yes.
Dickerson, Dickerson,
Yes.
Dukes, Dukes, Gamble, Gamble,
Yes.
Gilliard, Gilliard,
Yes.
Gordon, Gordon,
Yes.
Green, Green,
Yes.
Gullett, Gullett,
Yes.
Jones, J.B., Jones, J.B.,
Yes.
Kirby, Kirby,
Yes.
Lott, Lott,
Yes.
Mathis, Mathis,
Yes.
Metz, Metz, Momtahan,
Yes.
Momtahan,
Yes.
Park, Park, Pruitt,
Yes.
Pruitt, Rogers, Rogers,
Yes.
Singleton, Singleton,
Yes.
Stovall, Stovall,
Yes.
Williams R., Williams R.,
Yes.
Bazemore, Bazemore, Blackman, Carpenter, Carter, Carter, Clark D., Clark D., Cooper, Cooper, Davis, Dukes, Dukes, Holmes, Holmes,
Yes.
Jones S., Jones S., Jones V., Marin, Powell, Pullen, Scott.
That completes the call. The chair would ask that you take a moment, look at the board, and make sure it is consistent with your intentions. Mr. Clerk, you may lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1023, the ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1023. Chair recognize, or what purpose does the minority leader rise?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 143, would serve notice of intention to the House of a motion to reconsider. Serve notice of an intention to move for reconsideration on the next legislative day of the House's action on Senate Bill 43.
Gentleman has that right to serve notice since we're not in the final 3 days of session. He has the right to serve notice of his intention to ask that this House reconsider its position on Senate Bill 43. We're going on now to announcements. Listen up now. We're going to announcements. Chair recognizes the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, Chairman Cooper, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Health and Human Services will meet at 1 o'clock today. Health and Human Services at 1 o'clock today in room 606. See you in a few minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett for an announcement.
Subcommittee of Natural Resources will meet at 2 o'clock today, room 506, Environmental Quality. Then at 8 a.m. in the morning, full Committee of Motor Vehicles in 506. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Werkheiser for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Industry and Labor Committee will be meeting in a few minutes upon adjournment, CLOB 506. Please be there. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman McCall for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Originally, we had an ag meeting scheduled for 7:30 in the morning, but for some of y'all that ain't never seen the sun come up, we moved it till 8 o'clock in room 403. Hope you can get there.
Chair recognizes Chairman Timothy Barr for an announcement.
All right, y'all, we have Resource Management Subcommittee of Natural Resources meeting at 3:30. We have multiple pieces of legislation to address there, so make sure y'all come. Also in the morning, we are going to have the fellowship meeting downstairs 132. That's the Judiciary Committee room. The fellowship meeting tomorrow at 7:15. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden for an announcement.
House Insurance Committee will meet in the morning at 8 a.m. CLOB 606. We have one bill to consider. Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory Mr. Ahmad Marquez Arbery. Recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. Kenneth G. Bailey on the occasion of his 20th pastoral anniversary. Recognizing and commending Sino USA Next Generation Foundation for its role in donating personal protective equipment to hospitals across the state of Georgia. Recognizing and commending the Atlanta chapter of SUA International for its role in aiding in the coronavirus release efforts, honoring the life and memory of William James Perry. Recognizing and commending Deborah Mead. Recognizing and commending Dr. Erica P.I. Clark, honoring the life of Johnny Meadows and dedicating an commending Kelly Eck, Appalachia High School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Rebecca Doolittle, Bethlehem Christian Academy's 2020 Star Student. Commending Laura Freeman, Winder Barrow High School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Mason Banks, Victory Baptist School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Abigail Lassiter, Loganville High School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Claire Mistretta, Grayson High School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Drew Kuykendall, Victory Baptist School's 2020 Star Student. Commending Robert Parks, Loganville Christian Academy's 2020 Star Student. Recognizing and commending Camille Kyle Williams from Troop 1099 Northeast Council for completing his Eagle Scout. Recognizing and commending the Atlanta Pride Committee for its 50th anniversary of the Atlanta Pride Festival. Recognizing and commending Georgia Equality for 25 years of service to Georgia's LGBTQ communities. Recognizing and commending the Stonewall Bar Association of Georgia Incorporated for 25 years of service to the Georgia legal community. Recognizing and commending Judge Susan S. Camp on her outstanding public service. Recognizing and commending New Providence Baptist Church on the occasion of its 150th anniversary, honoring the life and memory of Norris Eugene Green. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. The chair recognizes the majority leader of the House for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 4 p.m. today, then stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, June 17th, 2020.
The majority leader has moved that this House be in recess until 4 o'clock p.m. today, whereupon we will be adjourned until Wednesday, June 17 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes appear to have it. This House will be in recess until 4 o'clock p.m. Then we will be adjourned until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.